not necessarily tribal or regional.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's that segment where we bring you the stories that made it to the front pages of the newspapers this morning. And as usual, we will begin with the Daily Trust. And the major story here has been the subject in the last 2 weeks. The Naira scarcity. Hardship lingers as businesses travel suffers. Online transactions fail, and chaos at banks as customers fight. I'm sure viewers at home would have stumbled on several videos that made it to the social media platforms yesterday of people practically stripping themselves naked within the banking hall in a bid to compel the banks to meet their demands for any kind of Naira. This time, not just the new Naira, whatever gives you value. And there we have other stories there on the front pages directly below the name marks. One killed as police station, INEC office bombed in Anambra. You'll find the details of that story on page 16. Wike revoked stadium approval for Atiku's campaign in Rivers. The details of that you'll find on page 11. And governorship candidates to defend agenda at media trust debate in Kano. Promises to be interesting, and that is happening tomorrow for those around Kano, and for every other part of the country. You can tune to Trust TV to get the details of that engagement. It promises to be exciting. And to other stories on the front page, crack widens in APC over Tinubu, powerful elements in the villa against our candidate El-Rufai, and cabal fighting back, CSO dons, Buhari not supporting anybody. Like women, that's interesting. It appears that the president had to wait for the last minute to prove that his statement as his initial inauguration is for everybody and for nobody. Emir of Dutse buried amidst eulogies. Taraba governorship, Supreme Court removes Bwacha as APC candidates. And the last story there on the front page, Kanu Hisba clears woman who married daughter's suitor, allegedly saying that she committed no wrong. I've given you the other part of the story that is not on the front page. And we have photos there of sympathizers at the burial of Emir of Dutse Alhaji Dr. Noor Mohammed Sanusi yesterday. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust.
All right, next we'll take a look at this Nigeria newspaper, and the major story is there's a gang up against Tinubu within Aso Rock. El-Rufai throws missile. And FFG, we won't work for or against any candidate. Details of that can be found on page 4. Still on the front page of this Nigeria, Anambra, again, gunmen kill one, burn INEC office, attack police stations. And talking politics now, Rivers people know my preferred candidate. That is according to Wiki. Details of that on page 6. FCT residents decry scarcity of new Naira notes. High charges by POS operators. That's on page 7 and 9. And fuel scarcity, cash crunch, slow political activities in Ondo. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of this Nigeria newspaper this morning.
Moving on quickly to the Nation newspaper. Still staying there with the story from El-Rufai. Elements in government working against Tinubu. Kaduna Governor, Naira redesign ill-timed retaining subsidy payment shocking. Villa not aware, says federal government. APC Presidential Campaign Council, Buhari backing Tinubu. Interesting and conflicting statements there coming from the APC. How Lekki Ekpe Road will boost Lagos economy. Sanwo-Olu opens expressway. To other stories there, worsening Naira scarcity hot daily living, businesses. Drama in banking hall, customers keep vigil at ATM point. Bank officials arrested. And to other stories, no cash missing in Ogoni Trust Fund, says Edu. And gunmen burn INEC office, police station in Anambra. A plan for betrayal, a plan for backstabbing long before they happen. Interesting. You want to get the details of that from the APC candidate, please pick up a copy of The Nations this morning. And that's it on The Nation newspaper.
All right, next we'll take a look at the Punch newspaper of this morning. The major story is new Naira scarcity. Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina border residents trade in CFA. Customers without new Naira notes must pay in CFA, traders insist. Banking halls empty. LCCI says Naira swap poor, affecting businesses. ICPC arrests currency hawker. Angry youth protest in Ekiti Delta. That is the major story on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Towards the bottom of the front page there, Abiodun Amuson. Clash over performance, abandoned projects. Details of that on page 20. Anambra gunmen killed teenager, burn 1,240 INEC materials. And Obi Kwankwaso won't step down for Atiku, and that is according to the parties. Moving towards the top of the front page there, besides the nameplate, Tinubu campaigners back El Rufai, Minister defends Buhari. And at the very top of the front page there, credit rating, Moody's downgrade 9 Nigerian banks. No favorite candidates, says U.S. envoy. And presidential candidate Wike frustrated, lacks integrity, says PCC. Details of that can be found on page 13. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning.
And to the Daily Sun this morning, Governor El-Rufai's allegation of sabotage sparked fear in APC. Party leaders express apprehension as presidency denies working with any candidate. It appears this issue is not going anywhere soon. And court okays Kanu's request to access doctors and medical record. He was not poisoned, well taken care of. DSS. To other stories, Atiku government considers Southeast for topmost position, Okonkwo. Allow states determine workers' salary, control own resources, pay taxes to the center, Akeredolu tells FG. Again, US warned politicians against undermining elections. Polls, why we are opposed to same-faith ticket, can. Arthur Eze moves to rescue Enugu from drinking water crisis, commissions major borehole project across Enugu metropolis. And to a bottom strip there, Atiku blasts Tinubu over government policies as Wike withdraws campaign venue approval. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Sun.
Next, we'll take a look at the Nigerian News Direct, and the major story on the front page is road projects. FG approves tolling of federal highways to refund 9.6 billion naira to Plateau, Borno. And switching quickly to politics, presidential rally, Yoruba groups urges Oshun residents to troop out, give Tinubu Shetima rousing welcome. Grow FG assets from 18 trillion to 100 trillion in 10 years. President Buhari charges new MOFI board at inauguration. And modern policing, IGP launches Smart Force database management system for digitization of personnel records. Moving towards the top of the front page there, fuel will become available at affordable prices in 2 weeks. That's according to Ipman. Sanwo-Olu delivers, opens 18.7 kilometer 6-lane Eleko-Ekpe Expressway. And finally, Kate Ene David becomes MTN Nigeria CEO for a day. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
And moving on to the first news this morning, the major story there is staying with the comments from the Kaduna State government. 2023, El-Rufai exposes Aso Rock elements plotting to scuttle Tinubu's victory. We are not aware. Buhari committed to free, fair elections, says FG, as Aisha Buhari shares Kaduna governor's video on Aso Rock element working against APC presidential flag bearer. Interesting developments there from the villa. And to other stories on the front page, APC Senator Amosun leads opposition ADC Guba rally in Ogun as governorship candidate Otogbeye adopts Tinubu for president. To other stories, presidential election again, Peter Obi leads Atiku, Tinubu in fresh polls. 2023, Atiku lied. We are not in alliance talk with him. LP, NNPP clarifies as Kwankwaso's party tells PDP presidential candidate to respect his age. And to other stories, why CBN shouldn't extend Naira swap deadline, Atiku. Wike fulfills threats, bars Atiku from Rivers campaign venue. We lost 729 ballot boxes, 243 voting cubicles in Anambra attack, INEC. Otom to Sanusi, stop interfering in Benue matters. Focus on your dethronement litigation. And these are the major stories on the front page of First News newspaper this morning.
All right, we'll take a look at the Blueprint newspaper next, and the major story on the front page. February 25th poll, FG El-Rufai differ on support for Tinubu. And it comes with riders here, some elements in Villa working against APC candidate, as according to the Kaduna governor. We're not aware President committed to free and fair polls, says Lai Mohammed. Ashiwaju unstoppable in spite of conspiracy, says the Presidential Campaign Council of the APC, and party launches Thinking Caps app to woo youth. And all this can be found on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. Fresh attack on Anambra INEC facility won't stop polls. That is according to Yakubu. 800,000 PVCs still uncollected in Oyo, says the resident electoral commissioner. Towards the bottom of the front page there, Supreme Court sacks Boacha as Saraba ABC Guba and Ebonyi PDP primary nullified. Details can be found on page 5. The news strip there, 2.24 billion naira fraud. Appeal court okays ex-AGF Otunla's trial after 6.4 billion naira refund. And public service recognition morale booster for FIRS, says Nami. OPEC blames January low output on Nigeria's non-recovery. And details of that can be found on page 22. Grow FG's 18 trillion naira assets to 100 trillion naira, Buhari tax MOFI board, and Federal Executive Council okays 4.078 billion naira projects for education sector, Umahi University. That is on page 18. And towards the top of the front page there below the nameplate, Presidency, Kwankwaso Obi disown Atiku, says we are not in talks and we don't have a preferred candidate, says the U.S. envoy. Those are the major stories on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper this morning.
And finally, we'll be looking at the business day, which focuses largely on business this morning. Blame is new petrol as NNPC oil marketers overwhelmed. What a way to put that. Starlink internet spread rattles competition. And MTN Nigeria grows 2022 revenue to 2 trillion. Nigerians are really talking. Redesigning Naira now does not make political economic sense, El-Rufai. These are the major headlines from the front pages of the newspapers we have in stock this morning. And joining us in the studio as usual, it's our reviewer, the editor-in-chief, Dateline newspaper, Malan Nasrullah. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Thank you. When I saw you step into the studio, I was happy in the sense that it then supposes that you would have gotten your hands on the new Naira notes, which then presupposes that you would have been able to get fuel to get to this point.
Coincidentally, I was actually at 2 banks this morning, and the queues that I saw.
It's overwhelming. That's as early as it is. Yeah. Probably some persons got there some 2-3 hours before you. I mean, the entire country is coming to a standstill. Yesterday, as clearly reported by the Daily Trust, those who were going to the airport, who already had flight booked and scheduled, could not cross the toll simply because the tolls do not take transfers or ATM cards, and they can't find the Naira to pay just 200 Naira to get your vehicle or to go past the gate. And it's some distance, I mean, between that toll point and any of the boarding terminal. Take us through what your personal experience has been with this whole Naira scarcity, whether it is the old or the new.
Well, like you said, maybe it's even better left unsaid, because if I should go through, you know, the experience that I had in the last few days, honestly, I don't even know how to put it. Like I said, this morning I was actually in 2 banks. You know, the first one, there was queue, and then it's not dispensing. And then the second one, they said it's dispensing, but then the crowd there, you know, the unruly and what have you. And some people are saying that Nigerians are impatient. Honestly, I don't think that is the case, because it's not as if the government is like doling out palliatives, you know. It's not as if the government is giving people money free of charge. This is something that people earned, you know, but to be able to access it has become entirely something entirely different. I don't know why, like, the government is still insisting, on this measure, because from all we can see, this thing is not working. We are no longer talking about the new Naira notes. We are even talking about even the old ones not being available. And you see, some were expecting that, with the policy, maybe you will now see more of 100 Naira notes, the 50 Naira notes. But that's not the case. You just don't see money at all. And if you know the number of businesses that are actually, closing shop because of this, honestly, the government should worry, because we used to say that even the number of POS points in Nigeria are, like too many. Now you need to go, a whole distance to be able to get one that has, cash. And even that one, people are now being charged
ridiculously,
10%, and people are willing to pay because they want this money. Because without this cash, honestly, I don't think, because of the way our economy, is being run, I don't think it's possible for us to continue this.
And another thing that actually came up during this scarcity of Naira notes is the inefficiency of our electronic transfer system. Because for the past couple of days, a lot of people have been complaining that they tried to make transfers. And definitely, personally, you must have tried to make a transfer between yesterday and day before yesterday, and it didn't go through, or you were debited and the money was not credited to the person you sent it to, or one problem or the other. Do we have the right infrastructure to say that we're going strictly cashless? Because if we have a good electronic payment system, I think it will go a long way in easing a lot of these things.
Well, I think rather than, pushing people into it, the government should have come up with, policies that can encourage people to start adopting this cashless economy, because of course there are advantages, but the way we are going about it, honestly, I don't think even the people want to buy into it, because look at what is happening now. You are talking about cashless economy, and then to be able to transfer money. I had a personal experience because I wanted to transfer money from my own one of my bank accounts to another. I did that successfully, but I couldn't get the value until a day or so after. And if that can happen, then people should be allowed to keep their money, because why should I take my money to the bank when I can't have access to them? So maybe there should be stages. I remember there was a time the CBN, started this as a pilot project. In some states you have the withdrawal limits so that you encourage the cashless policy. But what do the people do? They just go to the next town and be able to access all the money that they want to get. But right now what we are seeing is the fact that you are expecting people to adopt this cashless policy, transactions and what have you, and then they can't even do it. And then even the physical cash that they see. And interestingly, you see that if you go to all the ATM points, if you go to all the POS and what have you, you hardly see any member of the elite there. It's just the common man, struggling to get as little as 1,000 Naira. And sometimes they will be charged 100 Naira just to be able to withdraw 1,000 Naira. Honestly, I don't think this is the way to go about the cashless policy. If you want to go about that, fine and good, but do the needful so that people will not suffer unnecessarily.
Before we go away from this, Ibrahim had mentioned another dimension of it, which was not just the scarcity of note, but the inability to do transfers, which I've spoken to. But another dimension is even the first scarcity. Somehow we have forgotten that we are living with one hell, because in a line of hierarchy, it appears that cash is far more important than fuel. But that has lingered, and that has even worsened things even more, you know, because even for those who can get the fuel as it appears, you can't even pay for it. And that's an essential commodity. For some businesses, they need it to power their operations. For some others, for several other things that will require. I mean, I walked into a barbering salon last night, and the man told me I have to pay XYZ amount because it costs them money to withdraw. Then they finding the fuel, they have to pay XYZ amount. How much of this hardship really can we take? What is the tipping point for us as a people? Does the government even recognize that?
I don't think so, because you can see even at the filling stations, you know, they are now like kind of segregating. You know, if you are paying with cash, you know, there is a queue for you. If you are using your card to make the payment, because they are not sure of all the electronic transfer. So they are like giving preference to those who come with cash. And honestly, we are talking about, you know, the need to have thriving small businesses. And then right now what we are having is the opposite.
Crumbling.
You know, exactly the opposite. Businesses are not opening. At the market you see them, you know, with all their goods, but nobody to buy because the cash is simply not there. So honestly, the government, especially now that people have already started, you know, the countdown for them, because they have less than 120 days to go, they should worry about the legacy that they will want to leave behind. Because like we often say in Nigeria, people are as good as their last outing. If this is what happens in the end of your administration, then certainly it may be what Nigerians will be remembering you for, which is not good at all.
All right, well, talking about the current present administration and the outgoing administration, I would like to say a bombshell was dropped yesterday. The Kaduna State Governor, Madan Nasir El-Rufai, alleged internal sabotage from certain quarters, trying to scuttle the ambition of the APC and, of course, muddy the waters, so to speak, of their presidential campaign. And the papers are awash with all that because it generated a lot of controversy. I mean, he said a lot of things in that interview, but that was the main thing that took everybody's attention. Yeah. and that is the focus everybody is placing on it. What do you make of it? Do you think that that particular argument holds water?
Well, you know, even ahead of the party's primary election, there was that allegation that some people around the president actually wanted a different candidate from the one that eventually emerged. And of course, in politics, it is to be expected that they will continue pushing, you know, until they are able to probably get their way. And I also saw the reactions, like from the Minister of Information. The governor of Kaduna State didn't actually mention President Buhari. He said some elements around the president. And this like confirms with what the first lady, you know, used to say, that there are some people around the president that are like holding things back, you know. They are not allowing the president to do what he is supposed to do.
She actually reposted the interview.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is it's perfectly okay, you know, for people around the president to support a candidate, you know, outside even the APC presidential candidate. But the problem will be, you know, for them to either influence state policy or to use government machinery, you know, to push for that. If they do that, then that's where it becomes a problem. But they are perfectly, you know, allowed to support whoever. Even the president keeps saying that Nigerians should be allowed to vote for candidates of their choice. So that's not a problem. But for you to influence, you know, state policies like people are alleging at the moment, and sometimes if you look at it, you know, you will see that there is actually a basis for that, because which administration, you know, will allow things to get this bad, you know, towards the end of its tenure? Honestly, what El-Rufai said, you know, is something that, you know, people have been saying. Like they often say in politics, people should actually worry about the things that are not being said in public, not even the ones that some people are saying, because not so many people have the courage of El Rufai to be able to come out, in that manner and say things the way they are.
Interesting developments there. We would continue to keep tabs on what goes on, but clearly this appears and to suggest that there is a crack within the APC. But the PDP is having its own fair share of crisis also. I mean, yesterday the almighty Wike withdrew the campaign venue approval for its own party's presidential candidate. What does it foretell? This whole concept of sitting governors denying the use of public resources to citizens of this country. I mean, Wike is the latest. We saw that in other states. In fact, in Ekiti State, they made sure the taxi drivers and the bike operators did not even come out for work, that they just to prevent people from going to the venue. How petty can it get when it comes to local politicking in Nigeria?
Well, this is one of the arguments, the proponents of, or is it the opponents of state police, are always making. If, even with the fact that you don't control the federal security apparatus, you are still able to deny, citizens use of public institutions and places. Then what will happen if you now have the right to hire and fire whoever is in charge of the security? Honestly, this is something that we shouldn't even be talking about. Governments, come and go. You had predecessors. So many people were there before you. You are certainly also going to go. So just allow the people to decide. It's not the rallies. It's not all the crowd that you see that actually determine who will win the election.
True.
Because in the end, INEC does not count the number of people that attend political rallies. What they do is the number of votes, that come your way. So without that, honestly, I don't see why people should be denied the right to hold their rallies in certain places simply because the state executives, are having a different idea. And then this is the same governor that told Nigerians that by the end of January, they will all know his preferred candidate. January has passed. We have not heard anything from him. Now he's
So he's arguing that his people know his candidates, and he actually said that he didn't say he was going to come and publicly announce it. So he said he was going to make it known, and I think he believes he has made it known to his people.
Honestly, I don't think. Sometimes you need to come out, so that you don't leave any room for doubts and misinterpretations. But as far as I can see, he has failed to live up to the promise that he has made. But as far as allowing the PDP presidential candidate access to that stadium, honestly, I don't think it's even good, for it to happen. Because when he said that they will be allowed, to hold their rally there, so many people said, yeah, that's how politics should be. But all of a sudden there is a change, which shows that quite clearly that Wike is not backing the party's presidential candidate. But then you shouldn't use your own position, for personal reasons. Even when you were being sworn in as the governor, this is something that you actually swore to uphold, that you would be fair to all manner of people without fear or favor and things like that. So for this to happen, honestly, it's quite unfortunate.
All right, quite unfortunate indeed. And talking about elections and the conduct of elections, we're still seeing cases of violence and attacks on INEC offices, most especially in the southeast. Now, the latest one is the one that happened in Anambra. A 16-year-old boy was killed, and an INEC office was bombed, and lots of election materials were actually lost in the process. We've been talking about this, and we've heard from different quarters, INEC, security agencies saying that there's no problem, elections will hold in the southeast and whatnot. But from what we're seeing, is that truly the case? Is that truly what we see? That will elections be able to hold in the southeast as it is right now?
Well, I hope we're able to do that, because you remember when INEC came out to say insecurity was threatening the elections. You know, even the presidency reacted. So many people thought that was like a bit of an exaggeration. But with all the developments, you know, that keep happening, then INEC is right, you know, to have made that public, so that at least Nigerians will know. And then those who have a role to play, you know, will now see it as a serious business, something that they really need to do. Because we are talking about the Southeast. And already, if you go onto the social media, you will see the fact that so many people are alleging that what is happening may not even be the government that we keep blaming for all this. Some are already saying, no, it's because we think the Southeast is the base of a certain candidate. So because of that, they now want to scare people, so that in the end, the numbers that he's like likely to get from that region will not be possible in the end. So you see, it is when you leave things unaddressed, things like this to keep happening, that Nigerians will now have the chance to make all sorts of allegations. Because, you know, rumors spread in the absence of credible information. So if you are able to stop all this from happening, honestly, nobody will be doubting the possibility of holding election, or even alleging that some people are about to be shortchanged with what is happening.
And finally, very quickly, we saw the burial yesterday of the Emir of Dutse, Alhaji Dr. Nur Muhammad Sanusi. We saw the eulogies and the number of people who turned out. It turned out he died here in Abuja the day before his burial. What do you have to say about the late Emir?
Well, the late Emir, from what you can see, was at home with his people, very humble from what we can see, you know, coming from the people, especially the common people. And then to see the number of emirs, I think 17 of them actually attended his funeral. And, you know, it's very uncommon in this part of the world to see emirs attending funeral activities. So for them to have done that, you know, you should see the importance, you know, the how his people held him, you know, and like so many people said, he was very active until the end, you know. Anything that had to do with his people, he was always there trying to, like, whether influence it for the good of the people or stop things that are actually bad from happening to them.
Interesting words there about the late Emir, and the public show of sympathy, you know, and eulogies that followed his burial yesterday. Prayers here in the studio is that he will find rest with the Almighty. And that is the much we would bring to you this morning from the front pages of the newspaper. We've been talking with our analyst, the editor-in-chief, Deadline newspaper, Malan Nasrullah. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio again.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to your returning to the studio with more insightful perspective to the front pages.
And new Naira notes as well.
And the new Naira note, obviously, and possibly more fuel in your tank, certainly. We would take a short breather. We'll see you at the top of the hour with more from this program. Please don't go away.
But in a situation where you find that a person look at the
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that